this is the chance for truck drivers to, let the agency know why this is so important and that this rule needs to go forward and be made into a final rule.
Welcome back to the show. This week before Christmas has been a busy one when it comes to trucking news. So we've flipped on whatever the equivalent of the bat signal is for Landline, and two Caped Crusaders rushed to Studio A to help us break it all down. Mark Schremmer and Tyson Fisher, both of Landline Magazine. Gentlemen, good to see you.
That's a very nice intro there. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. My cape is at the dry cleaners right now.
We'll figure out how well you do, who's Batman and who's Robin in this situation,
all right.
But that'll come later. Let's start with this beneficial ownership information business. We've been telling people pretty much since the beginning of this year about new reporting requirements for small businesses that includes owner-operators. The deadline to file was January 1st, and I'm using the past tense there for a reason. But the players in this story decided to, I guess, throw it all up in the air over the final month of the year. Does that pretty much sum it up, Tyson? Where do we stand now?
I mean, this is a giant mess, right? There's been so much confusion about this throughout the entire year. So let's add to that confusion, shall we?
Let's do it.
But it actually kind of takes away some of that confusion. So, there has been a couple of lawsuits challenging. This is part of the Corporate Transparency Act, is what the beneficial ownership information comes from. There's been at least two lawsuits challenging that. And so what happened was... So one of the lawsuits was filed by the National Small Business Association. So earlier this year, a federal court ruled that they are likely to succeed on their merits, and then ordered an injunction on the Corporate Transparency Act, but that applied only to that association members. There was confusion about that. But there was another lawsuit filed by a company called Texas Top Cop Shop, which is a store for police officers. It's exactly as it sounds like. They had a very similar lawsuit, and just a few weeks ago, a federal court also found that it will likely succeed on their claims, and that court ordered a nationwide injunction on beneficial ownership information reporting for everybody. And so that pretty much stopped the clock on that one.
Which is where we stand right now.
Which is where we stand right now. But the thing is, the federal government wasn't going to just let that go like that. So they filed two challenges to that injunction. So one at the district court level and one at the Court of Appeals level. And so recently, like just a few days ago, actually, the district court denied that bid to lift that injunction. However, there is still the appellate court emergency motion asking for the same thing. That is still pending right now. But my guess is that the Fifth Circuit will uphold the injunction. The Fifth Circuit is a very conservative, perhaps the most conservative circuit court in the country. This is a Texas district court that started the injunction. So basically, the bottom line here is this. You do not have to file beneficial ownership information reporting as of
right now.
This conversation
yeah.
Thursday morning, December 19th. But that could change at the drop of the hat. It probably will not, but it could. So, I just encourage you just to check landline.media, frequently, because we're keeping up on this. We're letting you know what's going on. But as of today, December 19th, and you don't have to file. You can still.
I was going to say.
Yeah.
It might. I mean, if you haven't already, and if you are so inclined, it may not be the worst idea to just go ahead and file this in the event that, as you mentioned, in the last week or a couple days before, the injunction gets thrown out and this thing goes back in place. It puts people in a tough spot. I'm not saying that people need to, obviously, but if you're one of these people that kind of worries about these things, it may not be the worst idea.
Sure, and that's the thing. So if you're not against the idea of it, I would suggest just go ahead and file it. It takes it takes like less than an hour to fill it out, from what I understand. It doesn't take that long. It is free. There is no fee to do it. I got an email suggesting that there is a fee. There is no fee to file this. Now, people will charge you.
I was going to say, don't fall for any of those scams.
There are third parties to say for a couple $100, we'll file it for you. Dude, it's just like you're giving addresses and names
Yeah.
and stuff like that. You can do it. It's very easy to do it yourself. Don't fall for that.
Yeah, and call OIDA if you have questions
Sure.
too. Anybody here would be happy to, help you through that process to make sure that you're not getting swindled, because as we know, there are plenty of folks out there that take advantage of situations like this, especially when there's confusion about something like this as well. Let's move on to another topic now, the Federal Trade Commission's new rule regarding junk fees. Mark, you've been covering this story. There was, I think, some hope out there that the rule would maybe take a bite out of predatory towing practices. However, the end result, what came of all this, quite a bit watered down, right?
Yeah. So, when we first look at, the headline on landline.media, some people go, why is they're covering the Federal Trade Commission? And, this is something that is probably of general interest to everyone. They're trying to tackle junk fees and, the whole idea of advertising that this, the price is $50 for this, and then you go in online and
you check out, and it's all of a sudden $85.
Yeah, exactly. And we've all, anybody who's bought concert tickets, hotels, different things, we've all seen it, and I think most people can get behind this. Now, the reason this is relevant to trucking is when FTC originally put out this proposal, it was much more broad. They put it out back in, I think, November of 2023. And FMCSA and the U.S. Department of Transportation kind of latched onto it at that time and said they knew, from complaints from OIDA and others in the trucking industry about the bad actors in towing on these third-party tows that have really taken advantage of truck drivers, and these, there's no ability to negotiate prices, no ability to know what they're going to be charged beforehand, and, these inflated bills that we've seen that are just sometimes, we're talking tens, hundreds of thousands of dollars we've seen in some instances. And so that prompted some meetings over the summer. Department Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg was there, gave some good comments, was really hoping to use this FTC rulemaking as a way for them to tackle the problem. However, the rulemaking comes out, and like you said, it's watered down. It's much more limited in scope. And so it's only focusing on live event ticket prices. So like those concert prices, like, I'm going to go see Jerry Seinfeld and Jim Gaffigan here coming up. And it was the same situation. The tickets were like $40-some. And then you go to check out and, they were like 80 a piece. Yep. Is what I'm still going. They took me on that one, but
they know what they're doing. Yeah.
But now, so everybody would be happy about that. So, but it's limited to live event ticket sales and short-term lodging. So, hotels, Airbnbs, vacations, those type of things. I reached out to FMCSA to see, how does this make you pivot as far as the going after predatory towing? Unfortunately, it was a very vague answer. The kind of the standard. Where FMCSA, the focus is on safety, and we'll continue to explore different avenues. But there was really, not much to it. So it's still, I guess the door is open to see, how FMCSA, DOT, and with the administration change coming up in January, what they will do about predatory towing. So this doesn't solve the problem, but at least maybe the concert tickets will have a little more transparency there.
Yeah, I think our listeners will benefit from this, but not with regard to predatory towing. It's going to be with tickets and hotels.
I just booked a trip to New York City to go see a concert there. I should have waited a little bit for these fees to get away.
Well, hey, now you know. Next time, the next trip to New York City will be maybe less expensive, hopefully. I want to shift here to some new developments out of the Supreme Court. They'd been asked to step in and weigh in on California's advanced clean cars rule. They declined for a second time, I might add. Before we get into that, Tyson, can you remind everybody out there what this California rule does? and what shape the pushback has taken in recent weeks and months.
Yeah, so this lawsuit centers on advanced clean cars in California. So we're probably familiar with advanced clean trucks, which sets a certain manufacturers, their sales have to be a certain percentage of their sales have to be zero emission trucks. Advanced clean cars, it's just a passenger vehicle version of that. So very similar, just with passenger vehicles, not cars. Obviously, a lot of people are not too happy with that because it kind of establishes what they would call an electric vehicle mandate.
Right.
Been in pushback, so there has been several federal lawsuit challenges to the advanced clean cars, specifically that the Environmental Protection Agency. So in order to pass these stricter regulations, California has to get a waiver from the EPA. So what these federal challenges are challenging is that waiver. So they're saying is that EPA does not have the statutory authority to grant the waiver for advanced clean cars. The issue is, so that was at the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals, shut that lawsuit down. That was filed by oil companies, by the way. There was another lawsuit that was filed by a coalition of Republican states that was also shot down. Both petitioned to the Supreme Court, said, hey, hear this case. We don't think this should have been shot down. So what happened just very recently is the Supreme Court denied the states their petition. So that case is over.
Okay.
However, it did grant the petition from the oil companies, but on the issue of standing. So basically, the D.C. Circuit said, we're going to dismiss this case because you don't have standing to sue. You have no standing to sue, so we're not even going to decide on the merits of this case because you're not even allowed to sue in the first place. The oil companies went to the Supreme Court, said, I want you to rule on both the standing issue and the merits. The Supreme Court said, we're not going to rule on the merits, but we will rule on the issue of standing. So what that means is if the Supreme Court rules in favor of the oil companies, it's going to kick the case back to the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals to rule on its merits. So the question is, what does this mean for the trucking industry?
Right.
Well, there are several challenges to advanced clean trucks, which
Right.
is very similar. So what happens with this advanced clean cars rule can directly or indirectly affect the similar challenges to advanced clean trucks. So that's why we're closely watching this case.
All connected.
All connected,
Yeah.
in some way.
And again, these deadlines, a lot of them are coming up here in the next few weeks. Right?
Yeah.
So, and obviously others down the road as well. But we'll keep an eye on that. You'll keep us updated. We appreciate that. Before we go, I want to make sure we talk about broker transparency. We've got this long-awaited broker transparency rulemaking and the push to get FMCSA acting on this and doing something about it has really been turned up a notch, Mark.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about it over and over. This is an issue that OIDA and truckers have complained about for decades, the lack of broker transparency in the industry. This has been a push for 4 years. And right now, the door is open. Comments will be accepted through January 21st, 2025. And OIDA is really trying to make the push, especially when you consider it's the holiday season, everybody's busy. It's real easy to forget about this and not get comments filed in time. But this is the chance for truck drivers to, let the agency know why this is so important and that this rule needs to go forward and be made into a final rule. The proposal isn't perfect, but it does strengthen broker transparency regulations. And OIDA has made it easy. Fightingfortruckers.com. Go on there, submit your comments. It's as simple as that. There's about 1,500 comments filed so far. We need a lot more than that. OIDA also is planning. They're going to have kind of a fireside chat January 8th. There will be more details on that to come. But we're really making this push to January 21st, 2025. And personally, what I always kind of put the standard at, speed limiter's got 15,000 comments.
Yeah.
That's the type of amount that I'm looking for.
And 1,500 at this point in time with a month to go is, pretty impressive.
Yeah.
But as you pointed out,
With Christmas and
there's a lot more opportunity here to make sure FMCSA understands what a problem this is. And again, I think this is a step in the right direction. I think we can all agree on that. We'll keep an eye on that. We'll continue to talk about this topic as well with Tyson Fisher and Mark Schremmer of Landline Magazine. We appreciate both of your times.
Thanks for having me.
yeah, thanks, Scott.